let's see. I got to do my little test. Last time I almost went through the whole show without being muted. So let me make sure everything's working. I ain't trying to have that issue again. Hold up. Let's see. Yep. Test. Hold on, I'm listening right now. Yep. Test. Here we go. Yep, there we go. All right, so the book that I'm gonna go over is the Chaldean account of Genesis, and it's actually in the public domain, so you can actually just read this for free if you want to. I got my tabs like I always do. It's the New Year, so man, confusing. There we go. Got my tabs. It's New Year, so this is my first live video for this. What I've read from or what I've learned from reading this book. The first tab, and before I start, what's interesting about the Chaldeans is I just recently learned this maybe a year ago, but my mom bought me an 1873 Bible, and I have it here, and it's interesting because in it actually says the Chaldeans, the Babylonians, and the Sumerians were all one and the same. So I was like, wow, that's pretty interesting because I never read that before. So yeah, I'm trying to do two things at one time. Okay, this one. Let me see if I can do that one. Yep, I can do that. There we go. There we go. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so that was pretty interesting learning about the Babylonian Sumerians and Chaldeans being all one and the same. So I'm just going to go to the first tab that I found interesting. It says, let me see. Okay, it says, this search was a long and heavy work, for there were thousands of fragments to go over, and while on the one side I had gained as yet only 2 fragments of the Insdubar legends to judge from. On the other hand, the unsorted fragments were too small and contained so little of the subject that it was extremely difficult to ascertain the meaning. So it was pretty interesting to figure out that, you know, where they started to get these fragments were in the descriptions of it. Because here's another one. It says I now had the account of the deluge in the state in which I published it at the meeting of the Society of Biblical Archaeology, December 3rd, 1872. So when he got the deluge and got the understanding and translation, he published this back in 1872, and this is from George Smith. I know I didn't say that earlier, but this is from George Smith, another person that was able to translate the tablets from the cuneiform tablets, and he actually gives you cuneiform tablet identifiers. So he says right here, he says of this series, the tablet describing the deluge was the 11th and K 231.6. That's exactly what he wrote. So he gives you tablet identifiers. That's why I always ask people what cuneiform tablet identifier says what they say, because there's books out there that actually give you tablet identifiers. And Anton Parks is another person that does that, and I'll be going over his books in a little bit before in a while also. Then it says right here, the narrative on the Assyrian tablets commences with a description of the period before the world was created, when there existed a chaos or confusion. Now, I just understand that no difference than Big Bang Theory, right? Chaos and confusion, right? But this is his idea. He said the desolate and empty state of the universe and the generation by chaos of monsters are vividly given. The chaos is presided over by a female power named Tisalat and Tiamat. And Tisalat is spelled Tisalat, corresponding to Thalath and Berosus, but as it precedes, the Assyrian account agrees rather than with the Bible than with the short account from Berosus. So, and then it says, we are told in the inscriptions of the fall of the celestial being who appears to correspond to Satan. And then he is represented. And then here we go. Yeah, this is where it's interesting. In his ambition, he raises his hand against the sanctuary of God of heaven, and the description of him is really magnificent. He is represented riding a chariot through celestial space, surrounding by the storms, with the lightning playing before him and wielding a thunderbolt as a weapon. The print on here is not as great because this one is a reprint, of course. But yeah, and then it also goes into because this is a whole. I guess I marked this whole part, but for this whole section because I got a whole tab on here, but it says. This rebellion leads to a war in heaven and the conquest of the powers of evil, the gods, and the course creating the universe in stages, as in the Mosaic narrative. So this stuff is just interesting to me because I just see how words can be substituted, especially based on technology and new information and so on and so forth. But here's another tab. Each subject or series of tablets had a title, the title being formed by the first phrase or part of phrase in the subject. Thus, the series of astrological tablets numbering over 70 tablets bore the title when the gods Anu, Elu, this being the commencement of the first tablet. At the end of every tablet in each series was written. Its number is in the work. Thus, the first tablet of when the gods Anu, Elu, the second tablet of when the gods Anu, Elu, and so on and so forth. So yeah, it just gives you a description how these tablets are, and it's very interesting to me, because I always ask for what tablet identifiers people use for what they say. So, and this is still, this is let me see, what chapter is this? Yeah, this is the Babylonian and Assyrian literature part. So this is still in the beginning phases. This is not even getting into the legends and none of that other stuff, which I think I'm about to get to next. Well, here we go. So much concerning the wisdom of the Chaldeans. It is said that the first king of the country was Elorus, and that he gave out a report that God had appointed him to be the shepherd of the people. He reigned 10 Sari, now a Cyrus. I could be saying those wrong. It's estimated to be 3,600 years. A narrow 600 and Sosa 60. So let me read that. 3,000, right? 600 years, right? I'm going to say this again. 3,600 years. Most people will catch on to that, but that's what it says in the Chaldean text. Here we go. Of the Tower of Babel. They say that the first inhabitants of the earth, glorying in their own strength and size and despising the gods, undertook to raise a tower whose top should reach the sky in the place in which Babylon now stands. But when it approached the heaven, the winds assisted the gods and overthrew the work upon its contrivers. And its ruins are said to be still at Babylon. And the gods introduced a diversity of tongues among men who till that time had all spoken the same language, and a war arose between Cronus and Titan. The place in which they built the tower is now called Babylon on account of the confusion of tongues, for confusion is by the Hebrews called Babel. Now, when it says right here, the top, okay, yeah, a tower whose top should reach the sky in the place in which Babylon now stands. But when it approached the heaven, the winds assisted the gods. Now, I didn't know gods needed any assistance, but when I hear that, or read that, I should say, all I think about is how somebody didn't properly put up the tower and it crumbled because of strong winds. Nothing that has to do with what I've read from actually the Holy Bible. And I could go back there and read that right now, but this is about the Chaldeans. So it's just I could see how this is a different type of a story because it says assisted the gods. You know what? Let me see something real quick. I just want to check something. This. All right. I just want to see so. I want to see what the text say. I want to go ahead and just compare it now. See what it say. Let's see. Let's see. New International Version. Okay. Okay, but the Lord came down to see the city. Hold on, let me see. Let me screen share. Let me screen share this. Oh man. There we go. Okay, yeah, there we go. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord said, if as one people speak in the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Okay. So the Lord scattered them from all over the earth. Okay, so yeah, I think that's what I was reading right here. Read 4 chapter. Yeah, there we go. So make sure everything's on this other screen. Yep, everything's on the other screen. There we go. Yep, see, Shinar. That's Sumer, I should say. That's Sumer. I just want to see something. Yep, that's what I wanted to find. So Shinar, that's what I was looking for. So when I was talking about Babylon, Chaldeans, and the Sumerians all being the same, Shinar is also known as Sumer, which comes from the Sumerians. So that's what I was looking for right there. But I didn't want to get track that, but that was kind of making me wanted to verify something just anyway. But anyway, here's another one of the Tower of Babel. That when all men formerly spoke the same language, some among them undertook to erect a large and lofty tower that they might climb up into heaven. But God, sending forth a whirlwind, confounded their design and gave to each tribe particular language of its own, which is the reason that the name of the city is Babylon. After the deluge lived Titan and Prometheus, when Titan undertook a war against Cronus. So it's pretty interesting. This is George Smith from 18. What was that? What was this from? I don't think I said the date. Yeah, 1876. 1876. All right, Babylonian mythology was local in origin. Each of the gods had a particular city which was the seat of his worship, and it is probable that the idea of weaving the gods into a system in which each should have his part to play only had its origin at a later time. The antiquity of this mythology may be seen by the fact that 2,000 years before the Christian era, it was already completed and its deities definitely connected into a system which remained with little change down to the close of the kingdom. So, yeah, that's pretty interesting. Below these deities was a large body of gods forming the bulk of the pantheon, and below these were arranged the Igigi. And it's spelled Igege, not Igigi that I've seen so many times. Or angels of heaven and the Anunnaki, or angels of earth. Okay, let me say this again because this is interesting. Because the Igigi, I should say, and I've promoted this so many times. According to the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature, they are known as the great gods, and the Anunnaki are known as just gods. I've shared that so many times, but let me say this again. Below these deities, there was a large body of gods forming the bulk of the pantheon, and below these were arranged the Gigi, or angels of heaven, and the Anunnaki, or angels of earth. Below these again came various classes of spirits, or Genii, Genii, called Sadu, or Vaduku, Vadukku, or Ikimu, Ekimu, or Galu, Gallu, and others. Some of these were evil, some good. So no, not all Anunnaki were good. Not all Anunnaki were bad. All these different names and different titles is pretty interesting. So here we go. At the head of the Babylonian mythology stands a deity who sometimes identified with the heavens, sometimes considered as the ruler and god of heaven. This deity is named Anu. His sign is the simple star, the symbol of divinity, and at other times the Maltese cross. Anu represents abstract divinity, and he appears as an original principle, perhaps as the original principle, original principle of nature. He represents the universe as the upper and lower regions, and when these were divided, the upper region, or heaven, was called Anu, while the lower region, or earth, was called Anatu. Anatu being the female principle or wife of Anu. Anu is termed the old god and the god of the whole of heaven and earth. One of the manifestations Anu was at the top was as the two forms Lama and Lahama, which probably correspond to the Greek forms Dachi and Dakas. And then it says go to page 50. Go back to page 50 real quick and see. Okay, yeah, I see. Nothing big. But yep, that's what it is. It says Anu and Anatu. This is another tab. Have a numerous family. Among their sons are numbered. Let's see, Sarziri, the king of the desert, Latarak, Abgula, Kusu, and the air god whose name is uncertain. The air god is usually called Vul, Vul. He has also the name Per and the epithets Ramen or Remen, the existent, and Ubane or Ben. Vul is a god of the region of the atmosphere or space between the heaven and earth. He is the god of rain, of storms and whirlwind, of thunder, lightning, of floods and watercourses. Okay, another important god of son of Anu was the fire god Bilkan, with the possibility of some connection with the biblical Tubal-Cain and classical Vulcan. The fire god takes an active part in the numerous mythological tablets and legends, and he is considered to be the most potent deity in relation to witchcraft, spells, and all in general. The most important of the daughters of Anu was named Ishtar. She was, some respects, the equivalent of the classical Venus, who her worship was at the first subordinate to that of Anu, and as she was a goddess of love, while Anu was god of heaven. It is probable that the first intention in the mythology was only to represent love as heaven born. You got Merodach, god of Babylon, appears in all the earlier inscriptions as the agent of his father. Let's see who else. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, and then it just gives hold on, let's see. It just gives a little diagram. I don't think y'all see that too well. Probably not. But yeah, it just gives a little diagram. Man, I need to take it back up. That thing came loose again. Let's see. Why did I mark this? Let's see, what's this from? Okay, this is part of, let's see. Okay, connected with this fragment is the account of the curse after the fall on the remarkable fragment which I brought over from the first expedition of Syria. This forms about half a tablet being part verse and reverse, both in fair preservation and so far as they go, fairly perfect, but containing a present many obscurities in the speeches of the gods. Before the commencement of lines 1, 5, 11, 19, 27, and 29 on the obverse, there are glosses stating that the divine titles commencing these lines all apply to the same deity. These explanatory glosses show that evil in the Assyrian time, there were difficulties in the narrative. So I'm just going to read the reverse part. I'm not going to read the verse. It says line one, there's nothing on there. And then line two, and it says a couple of dots. And then it says the star. And then it says a couple of dots afterward. Line three, it says, may he take the tail and head, ... because the dragon Tiamat had ... his punishment, the planets possessing ... by the stars. Hold on, let's see something. Let's see. By the stars of heaven themselves may they ... like a sheep may the gods tremble all of them. May he bind Tiamat, her prisons may be shut and up and surround. Afterwards, the people of remote ages may she remove, not destroy forever. So yeah, that's just, I guess that's the little part that it was given. It has already been pointed out by Sir Henry Rawlinson that the Babylonians recognized two principal races. Now this is interesting because I just did an article about race. I'm just finishing it up actually. So this actually I'm going to go back and put this in there because this is a great part, because I did add history part of the Sumerians in there. But anyway, recognize two principal races, the Adamu or dark race and the Sarku or light race, probably in the same manner that the two races are mentioned in Genesis, the sons of Adam and the sons of God. It appears incidentally from the fragments of inscriptions that it was the race of Adam or the dark race, which was believed to have fallen, but there is at present no clue to the position of the race in their system. We are informed in Genesis that when the world became corrupt, the sons of God intermarried with the race of Adam, and thus spread the evils which had commenced with the Adamites. Who created Adam? And what God and what they say, make God in the image of, make them in the image of us. Yeah. Okay, let's see. The next page, actually, it says the fragmentary account of the fallen inscriptions mentions the dragon Tiamat, or the dragon of the sea, evidently in the same relation as the serpent, being concerned in bringing about the fall. This dragon is called the dragon of Tiamat, or the sea. It is generally conceived of as a griffin and is connected with the original chaos, the Thalath or Berosus, the female principle, which, according to both the inscriptions and Berosus, existed before the creation of the universe. This was the original spirit of chaos and disorder, a spirit opposed in principle to the gods, and according to the Babylonians, self-existed in an eternal order older even than the gods, for the birth of separation of the deities out this chaos was the first step in the creation of the world. Then it says, next page, the loss of this portion of the creation legend is unfortunate, as however probable it may be that the Hebrew and Babylonian traditions agree about the garden and tree of knowledge. We cannot now prove it. We cannot now prove it. There is a second tree, the tree of life, in the Genesis account, which certainly appears to correspond to the sacred grove of Anu, which a fragment states was guarded by a sword turning to all the 4 points of the compass. Interesting. In several other places in the Genesis legends, and especially in the legends of Isdubar, there are allusions to the tree grove or forest of the gods, and this divine tree grove is often represented on the sculptures, both in the Babylonian gem engravings and on the walls of the Assyrian palaces and temples. So that's pretty interesting. Let's see. Next page. It is quite clear that the dragon of the sea, or dragon of Tiamat, is connected with the fall like the serpent in the book of Genesis, and in fact is the equivalent of the serpent. The name of the dragon is not written phonetically, but by 2 monograms, which probably means the scaly one, or animal covered with scales. This description, of course, might apply either to a fabulous dragon or a serpent or a fish. Yeah, see? So now that's crazy, because guess what? What fish guys do y'all know? We got Jesus. Remember when they depicted him as a fish at sometimes. Inky. There's a couple of more out there. The only passages where there is phonetic explanation of the signs is in cuneiform inscriptions, where, and it says right here, volume 2, page 32, I guess he gives right here, 1 through 9, where we have Turbotu for the place or den of the dragon, perhaps connected with the Hebrew word sea monster. They give you the Hebrew word, and then next to it, it's sea monster. The form of this creature, as given on the gems, is that of a griffin or a dragon, generally with a head like carnivorous animal, body covered with scales, legs terminating in claws like an eagle, and wings on the back. Our own heraldic griffins are so strikingly like the sculptures of this creature that we might almost suspect them to be copies from the Chaldean works. Yep. That's what he said. What is it? 19? No, I keep thinking it's in the front. 18. What was it? George Smith said this. 1876. George Smith was saying this though. Let's see. These fragments of the cuneiform account of the creation and fall agree so far as they are preserved with the biblical account, and show that in a period from 2000 BC to 1500, the Babylonians believed in a similar story to that in Genesis. Let's see. In the last chapter, he says, I have given the fragments of the principal story of the creation fall from the cuneiform inscriptions, but it appears from the tablets that all these legends were traditions or stories repeated by word of mouth and afterwards committing to writing. When such traditions are not reduced to writing and depend on being handed down from generation to generation by word of mouth, they are liable to be vary, sometimes very widely, according to the period and condition of the country. Thus, many different versions of a story arise, and there can be no doubt that this was actually the case with the creation legends. There must have been a belief in the creation and some of the leading features of the story long before these creation legends were committed to writing, and there are evidences of the other stories related to those already given, which were at about the same time committed to writing. So yeah, I always see. Here we go. Look, here's a eagle-headed man from the Nimrod sculpture right there. There you go. There you go. Uh-oh. Hold up. There you go. See? Eagle-headed man from Nimrod sculpture. That's a Nimrod sculpture. Oh, man. It's crazy what you read when you read these old books, because they even tell you back then that this information is just they have multiple different stories. So believing in just one, you're just picking whichever one goes with your little feelings that you have, because you don't want nobody to take away from the fact that that's not the only story, or that's the only story. Among the legends of the gods, companion stories to the accounts of the creation and deluge, one of the most curious is the legend of the sin committed by the god Zu. This legend stands alone among the stories, its incidents, and its principles, after being otherwise most unknown from cuneiform sources. I have at present only detected one copy of the story, and this is in so mutilated a condition that it cannot be connected with any other of the legends. From some similarity in style, I conjecture that it may form the first tablet of the series, which I have termed the Wars of the Gods. I have, however, no sufficient evidence to connect the two, and for this reason, give it here a separate place preceding the tablets of the War of the Gods. The principal actor in the legend is a being named Zu, the name being found in all three cases of Assyrian nouns Zu, Za, and Z. Preceding the names is the determinative of divinity from which I have judged Zu to have been ranked among the gods. The story of the sin of Zu has sometimes reminded me of the outrage of Ham on his father Noah in the mutilation of Uranus. It's spelled different here. By his son Saturn, by there is not sufficient evidence to connect the stories, and there are in the Syrian account several very different words. One of these is a particular obscure, and I only describe it here by the ordinary phonetic values of the characters sin, I. It may possibly mean some tailless man or oracle in the possession of Bel, which was robbed from him by Zu. There are, besides the two difficult words Parsi and Tariti, which I have preferred merely transcribing and translation. It must be added that the inscription is seriously mutilated in some parts, giving additional difficulty in the translation. So it's just good that people can read something like this that he gives you right here. He gives you the this is how he gives you the information. So there it goes. See how it says K3454, column 1 lost, in column 2. That's the tablet cuneiform identifier. Okay, cuneiform tablet identifier. So when I ask people all the time what cuneiform tablet identifier says, what they say, I can go in any of the books that I personally own that have all these identifiers that I know of personally. I can go in here and look at the titles, and if you say it's under a creation story, I can go to that chapter and I can look for it because it's going to give it to me. And what makes it easier is if you just show me exactly where you got it from, so I can bypass all that looking myself and just look, you take a screenshot of it. But 9 times out of 10, people just say things just to be saying. This Zu bird I suppose to be the same as the god Zu of the inscriptions. His nature is shown by a passage in the annals of okay, this is spelled differently, but Asanabal, cuneiform in inscriptions, where he says his warriors like the divine Zu bird upon them darted. Then it talks about in the legend of Sartuda, it is said that he changed into a Zu bird. Yeah, so it's, yeah. And I got one. Here we go. In my translation legend, here we go. In my translation of the legend on K3454, the cuneiform tablet identifier, The sin of Zu is very obscure, and I am quite unable to see through the allusions in the text, but it is quite evident that his sin was considered to be great, as it raises the anger of Baal and causes Anu to call on his sons in succession to slay Zu, while the sons of the god Anu request that he may be expelled from the company of the gods. Now, see, I like uniform tablet identifiers. I'm telling you, that's why I don't understand people. You can fool people when they don't have time to look up stuff for themselves, and even then, that's just taking advantage of people. You know, just imagine what more you could do. Babel. Let me see. Okay, here we go. So far as we can judge from the fragments of his copyists, there was no reference to it in the work of Berosus, and early writers had to quote from right. Okay, why did I write this? Let's see. This one, that means I have to go back to the beginning. Okay, yeah, this is fragments from this miscellaneous text. There we go. Just wanted to make sure. These are men engaged in building. I'm not sure you guys will be able to see this or not. But yeah, you see, men engaged in building from Babylonian cylinder. You see there. Here's another one right there. All right. Let's see if I can straighten this out so y'all can see it again. Oh man, I wish I wish I had the bread that these cats be having to do these high definition videos. I ain't got it like that, but that's the best I could do for you guys to show how they did the buildings and stuff. It looks like, I mean, let's see if I could try it again. Let's see. There we go. Yes, here we go. See? That's them building. And that's according to the cylinder seals. So back then. So yeah. It's pretty interesting, right? You can analyze that yourself. In the Babylonian and Assyrian sculptures, there are occasionally representations of towers similar in style to the supposed Tower of Babel. Now, if you looked at those little things, they look like little columns or whatever. One of these is given on the stone of Merodach, Baladan I, opposite, and it says go page 236 of Assyrian discoveries. Another occurs on the sculptures as Nineveh, representing the city of Babylon. This tower is probably the Borsippa, which is supposed to represent the Tower of Babel. Bur's Nimrod now consists of 7 stages, but the top stages were only built by Nebuchadnezzar. Before his time, it probably presented the appearance shown in the Assyrian sculpture and in the similar Babylonian representations figured opposite page 236 of Assyrian discoveries, which it mentioned just a few minutes ago. Almost done with these tabs. Yep. Y'all, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Who this look like? Who that look like? Hold on, let's see if I can get it quick. Look at that. Who that? Some people would say that's Gilgamesh. You wouldn't be wrong either. That's why some people believe Gilgamesh and Nimrod were the same. I've read that. I have sources. I'll be going over that. Belonging to the first centuries of the Christian era are the works of various Jewish and Christian writers who have made us familiar with a number of later traditions of Nimrod. Josephus declares that he was a prime mover in building the Tower of Babel, an enemy of God, and that he reigned at Babylon during the dispersion. Later writers make him contemporary with Abraham, the inventor of idol worship and a furious worshiper of fire. Now, listen to that. Listen to that. Hold up. Say again. Belonging to the first centuries of the Christian era are the works of the various Jewish and Christian writers who have made us familiar with a number of later traditions of Nimrod. Josephus declares that he was a prime mover in building the Tower of Babel, an enemy of God, and that he reigned in Babylon during the dispersion. Later writers make him contemporary with Abraham, the inventor of idol worship and a furious worshiper of fire. At the city of Orpha in Syria, that's my dog. In Syria, he is said to have cast Abraham into a burning fiery furnace because he would not bow down to his idols. These traditions have been taken up by the Arabs, and although his history has been lost and replaced by absurd and worthless stories, Nimrod still remains the most prominent name in the traditions of the country. Everything good or evil is attributed to him, and the most important ruins are even now called after his name. From the time of the early Christian writers down to today, men have been busy framing systems of general chronology. And as Nimrod was always known as a famous sovereign, it was necessary to find a definite place for him in chronological scheme. Hold on, let's see. This one's going to keep going. Okay, yeah, let's see. Okay, yeah. Africanus and Eusebius held that he was the Avicous of Berosus and reigned after the flood. Moses of Corine identified him with Baal, the great god of Babylon, and he is said to have extended his domination or dominions to the foot of the Armenian mountains, falling in battle. There, when attempting to enforce his authority over Hayat, king of Armenia. Some other writers identified Nimrod with Ninus, the mythical founder of the city Nineveh. These remained the principal identifications before modern research took up the matter, but so wide a door was open to conjecture that one writer actually identified Nimrod with the Alorus of Berosus, the first king of Babylon before the flood. One of the most curious theories about Nimrod suggested in modern times was grounded on the book of Nabatean agriculture. This work is a comparatively modern forgery pretending to be a literary production of the early Chaldean period. That's interesting. Goes on and on, of course. I just wanted to give you a little snippet. Let's see. Let's see. Okay. All right. I think I'm gonna have to. Maybe this will make sense if I just start it right here. Okay, I have always felt that Nimrod, whose name figures so prominently in Eastern tradition and whose reign is clearly stated in Genesis, ought to be first found somewhere in the cuneiform text. But I first inclined to the mistaken idea that he might be Hammurabi, the first Arab king of Berosus, as this line of kings appeared to be connected with the Koseans. This identification failing, I was entirely in the dark until I discovered the Deluge tablet in 1872. I then conjecture that the hero whose name I provincially called Isdubar was the Nimrod of the Bible, a conjecture which I have strengthened by fresh evidence from time to time. So that's pretty interesting. So talking about Nimrod in here, it's a lot. It's a lot in here. Let me see if I can find something before we get to the next tablet. Okay, the idea that Nimrod was Bel or Elu, the second god in the great Babylonian triad, was equally impossible for the same reason, and because the worship of Bel was, as I have already stated, much more ancient. He being considered one of the creators of the universe and the father of the gods. Bel was the deification of the powers of nature on earth, just as Anu was a deification of powers of nature in heaven. Okay, yeah. Of course, Nimrod was deified like several other celebrated kings, but in no case was a deified king invested as one of the supreme gods and represented as a creator, such as process could only come from with if a nation entirely forgot its history and lost its original mythology. Let me see something. Almost done. Almost done. Let's see. In all these cases and in every other instance where Isdubar is represented, he is indicated as a man with masses of curls over his beard and a large curly beard. Over his head, and a large curly beard. So marked is this and different in cast to usual Babylonian type that I cannot help the impression of its being a representation. Let me say this over because some people are going about to lose their mind. In all of these cases, and in every other instance where Isdubar is represented, he is indicated as a man with masses of curls over his head and a large curly beard. So marked is this and different in cast to the usual Babylonian type that I cannot help the impression of its being a representation of a distinct and probably Ethiopian type. Okay. So in 1873, or I keep saying in 1873 because of my Bible. In 1876, I want to verify. Yeah, George Smith, a white scholar, said this. Now, I know a lot of people when they hear, people from African origins talking about, Isdubar or Gilgamesh or Nimrod, they could have been Ethiopian. A lot of people say, "Oh, you're just Afrocentric. You want everything to be African." Well, in 1873, Black people weren't able to read. Okay, there was other things they had to do before they could, there was a few small percentage of them that could, of course, but most of them had to do other things, right? So it wasn't known for them to pass this type of information on to their kids and their generations and so on and so forth. So when the generations, like the people that were able to read later on and get this information, they pick up books like this, right? They just pick up books like this and they go to that part. It's page 194. I tab all my stuff up so I don't have to make anything. They read this and they go to their friends and they say, "Hey man, did you know that Nimrod was probably Ethiopian?" And everybody's like, "Oh, you just want everything to be Afrocentric." No, I read it from George Smith, man. I read it from a book that's a scholar select. I mean, this says it right here. Like, I read it from the book. What am I supposed to say? "Oh, you want everything?" No, I'm just sharing what I read. That's it. That's it. That's it. Sharing, people, I'm telling you, people get more mad at me more sharing what I read than my personal feeling. I haven't even began to share my personal feelings or my opinions of what I've read yet. All I do is share that. If I get in flack for reading what it says in the book, man, what's up here probably gonna drive people like people gonna hate me for real. But all I'm doing is reading what it says. So when I read something that says Ethiopian, I'm like, okay, that's pretty interesting. I got Godfrey Higgins that wrote stuff in 1833 about how most of the guys that he did research on were probably from the same area. And I have these books are books that weren't given to me when I was a child to read. So reading it now and knowing what I know now and reading the Bible, and people was like, "Oh, I want to know this and I want to know that and this, that, and third," and be like, "Well, maybe you might want to look more into the Ethiopian side of history and things and stop focusing on other things, because it seems like everything is going to that." Not because I think so, but if you're telling me that you've read George Smith's books or Andrew George or Godfrey Higgins or any of that other stuff, and you say, "Okay, well, I'm going to use these individual sources for whatever I got to say," then I'm going to tell you, well, how do you pick out what is accurate, what they say and what they don't say? And why wouldn't you start at something that's saying, "Hey, if it started in Ethiopia, everything started with a pictographic script. Maybe we need to see the writing systems and look more depth into that and see what's really it is." I mean, this just makes sense to me if I'm reading something that says, hey, well, it's probably this, right? They probably, there's so many different reasons why he probably said that, but he said it for a reason. And, you can't quote him for, for whatever narrative you want to quote him for and keep out all the other stuff. You gotta go with it all. But here we go. Let's see. Where's the okay, yeah. We now come no, that's not it. Okay, yeah. But for her where is it? Okay, yeah, but we have to remember that these Isdubar legends were not invented for history, but for historical romance, and the whole story of Ishtar may be only introduced to show the hero's opposition to this worship or to make an attack upon the superstition by quoting Isdubar's supposed defiance of the goddess. I don't know why I marked that up, but I know that there's a lot of anger and stuff like that. This assists in explaining a curious tablet printed in inscriptions. Let's see. Okay, here we go. This tablet speaks of the appearance of comets, one of which has a tail like a lizard or creeping thing, and a scorpion. The land of the mass or desert of the mass over which Isdubar travels in this tablet is the desert on the west of Euphrates. On the sixth column, the fragment appears to refer to some bird from magnificent feathers like precious stones seen by Isdubar on the journey. I'm trying to look for see what tablet they're talking about, but they don't have a picture in it. They're probably talking about this one, but it's very small. I don't think you guys will be able to see it, but that's it. That's the only thing that yeah, there we go. So the land. That tablet, but I don't think that's it. But yeah, that's what it is. We got about 5 more tablets. Tabs. Okay, here we go. The story of the flood, and this is under. He gives his little description of that, but here's the actual translation. It says, "Come to build the ark, ... Sin of the world, ... Threat to destroy it, ... Seed of life to be saved, ... Size of the ark, ... Animals to go in ark, ... Building of ark, ... Coated within and without with bitterman, ... Food taken in the ark, ... Coming flood, ... Destruction of people, ... Cessation of deluge, ... Now let me hold on. I'm gonna tell you something. So if I'm picking up a tablet and I know how to translate this stuff, right? And I'm reading this right here, right? Now let's put this into a perspective. All these ... dots that I was saying was stuff that's no longer mentioned, right? Like they don't know what it said. It's too deteriorated. They couldn't translate, whatever the case may be. It's just so many different reasons why. But let me tell you this: command to build the ark, ... Right? That could be like, yo, we need to build an ark. I see a storm coming. I feel it. I'm telling you, something's going on. We need to do it. Everybody's like, no, you're crazy. You're crazy. No. And like, no, I think we really need to build a boat. And he goes out there, or she goes out there and build the boat, whatever the case may be. And oh man, I'm blurry. What's going on? And let me see something. Let's see if that works. I didn't turn on the light earlier. Yeah, it did work. Haha. Anyway, so like, hold on, yeah, he goes out there and builds the word. And sin of the world. Now, you know what sin is missing its mark, right? So you're missing your mark. You're missing your chance to build build your ark or whatever. You're going to, the sinners are going to be the ones that die. Threat to destroy it. ... Now, threat to destroy is a storm. That's all it is. So whoever filled in the blanks from that, that's when you get the whole Bible. And this is here we go. Seed of the life to be saved. Seed of life to be saved. Seed of life to be saved. Dot. Well, the seed of life to be saved are the ones who's listening and building their own boat, right? Size of the ark. Well, we got about 20 people. We need to build a boat big enough for 20 people. You guys might need to build a boat for about 10 people. No, we'll build it, but we don't need to build a boat. But if we got enough little boats, no, you need to build a bigger boat. Well, those little boats didn't make it, right? Building of ark. Let's see. Hold up. Animals to go in ark. Well, bring all the animals that you need to survive something for however long, right? Okay. Here we go. Make sure you coat it with bitumen. Okay. And then the coming of flood. So yeah. Let's see. Okay, there appears to have been some connection of confusion between Enoch and Noah in ancient tradition. Both are holy men, and Enoch is said, like Noah, to have predicted the flood. It is a curious fact that the dynasty of gods with the Egyptian mythical history commences shows some similar points. There we go. I'm just going to show this for you guys. I'm not going to read it. You can pause it, take a snapshot. Is the Egyptian gods, the patriarchs, and the Chaldean kings. I here show the three lists: the Egyptian gods, the Jewish patriarchs, and the Chaldean kings. So you got Ta, Adam, Aloras, Ra, Seth, Alaparas, Su, Anos, Avalon, and you can just go down. Right? That's from the ancient text, 1876. George Smith. Don't be mad at me. I'm just sharing the knowledge. That's all I'm doing. Lamech has already been pointed out by Palmer, Egyptian Khan. Okay, so yeah, is it two forms of name? And the last one is, it just talks about the four rivers. The Euphrates, Tigris, Ganduno, similar to Ganadine, and the Garden of Eden. So I'm gonna just read it. There are coincidences in respect to the geography of the region and its name, which render the identification very probable. The four rivers in each case, too, the Euphrates and Tigris, certainly identical to the known fertility of the region, its name. Sometimes Ganduno, so similar to Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, and of other considerations all tend towards the view that it is the paradise of Genesis. Show y'all this last thing. This is another picture right here. The fish god. Y'all know who that is. From another Nimrod sculpture. Y'all know what that is. Here we go. So that's it. That is it. That's the book. Let's see. Let me see which book I'm going to do next after this. Probably do it. I don't know. Probably do it on a Monday. But yep. Oh, what's up, Garden? We should actually talk about that. That's actually something I do want to talk about that. Let's see. Oh, and there's Alexander is a good author. I bought his book. He has one in Polish and in English. Very, very interesting books. I'm going to post it up here next time. Check him out. Very interesting information. I've done a couple of 2 podcast discussions with him. Most of you guys already know because I promote his stuff a lot, especially when I'm having random discussions with different people. But the next book that I am going to be reading from this series, or not from this series, but from this series called What I've Read from These Books, is going to be Anaclipsis Volume 1, an attempt to draw aside the veil of the Saitic Isis, or an inquiry into the origin of languages, nations, and religions by Godfrey Higgins. So I was just talking about him. He has 2. I did one of his books already, I think. He has 3 books that I've read, really thick books, good information. This is where I started with wanting to learn history. But I'm gonna do his book next. And he has 2 of them back to back. They're really thick, and then we'll go from there. But I appreciate you guys. I appreciate it so much. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll look into it. Catch y'all next time. Take it easy.